Hey, welcome once again to the Right Path to Retirement podcast with Jimmy Lynn. My name is Jeff Miles. Jimmy, the last time that you and I got together, we got to dive into you and your personal life, why you do what you do. And I guess the foundation really started with your father, who worked for, all of his years really hard. I mean, especially being an immigrant to the United States. And you said before, living the American dream, gets to 65 years old, like so many people who are listening right now. And then he had to take on a part-time job to kind of help get him through that retirement. And I think that's a great way to describe what you're trying to do for others who are in that same situation. And so, Jimmy, I want to just kind of get us into who exactly are you looking to really get this message out to?
Right. So our main focus with our firm, Right Path Wealth Management, is really focusing on pre-retirees. So those are typically defined as people within 5 years of retirement,
Sure.
Or retirees that are currently in retirement. Because oftentimes people kind of just pull the ripcord and say, I'm ready to retire, and they just jump out that plane, oftentimes without planning for it. And when you do that, there's a lot of areas that if you don't plan a few years in advance, you start scrambling, right? You start realizing, hey, taxes aren't the way they were during my working years, or, hey, these paychecks that I was getting from my employer, they're not coming in the way that I was expecting. So, how do I pivot from that? So it's important really to kind of have a plan for that. And I think I mentioned this in our last podcast, there's basically two different phases of retirement. There's the accumulation phase, and that's when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, where, you may gotten your first job, you open up a 401k, maybe you're getting a company match, and you're just diligently contributing to that 401k or 403b over the next 30 and 40 years. The word risk isn't even part of your vocabulary because,
Right.
When the market's down, you're actually getting a discount on your investments, right?
Sure.
So you're just piling money away. But once you get to your 50s and especially your 60s, it's a whole different ballgame, because that's when you're talking about the distribution phase. And that's where the planning really comes into play to help hopefully minimize your taxes, create an income plan so that you can have those reliable paychecks, and making sure that you actually have an asset preservation strategy for those investments that you work so hard on.
So I would say that for the person that's listening right now, if you are one of those who retirement is very close, or if you are someone who is already in the retirement phase, maybe even into the distribution phase, as you're looking forward to what am I going to do with everything that I've saved so far and everything that I've invested so far. Jimmy, that's where we want to go into the next part of when people come to see you, when people come to see one of your seminars, when people are listening to this podcast. What are those areas that you focus in the most to help people get the most out of their retirement?
Well, the area that we get the most questions about are taxes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just simply because some people realize this and some people don't. But for many retirees, taxes could be their largest expense in retirement.
How crazy is that, though, when you think about it? Like, I can't imagine just thinking about that.
You know what people get really upset about is the fact that they've paid their taxes throughout their career, including taxes to fund Social Security, and then they retire, they turn on their Social Security, and then they realize, oops, they're going to tax my Social Security when I was taxed to contribute to that Social Security. So it's almost like they feel like they're being double taxed on this money.
I mean, when you say it that way, it really does kind of feel that way. It's like the money that went in was taxed, right? You see what I'm saying? And then now you're going to tax me to withdraw this money.
Yeah, and there's no party you can blame, because initially Social Security was not taxable.
Right.
The Reagan administration made it taxable, and then the Clinton administration made it more taxable. So you can't really blame any party. It just is what it is, as they say, right? But our job is really to help create plans where you can minimize some of those taxes, and that's what we focus on.
I'm sure a lot of people too, as you talk about the word taxes, and especially like Social Security and especially like, I don't know, if you've got, IRAs and Roth IRAs and you've got 401ks and everything else, trying to keep up with every avenue that is going to be taxed is probably just, that's a full-time job in itself.
It absolutely is. And even for advisors. So one of the reasons why we started our firm is because, when you go to the big box advisors,
sure,
oftentimes all they talk to you about is investments and accumulation of assets. They usually can't even talk to you about taxes because of compliance purposes, right?
Sure.
So if you have a tax question, if you have a question like, how do I get out of this 401k so I'm not continuously paying taxes on it, into my later years, you may bring up a concept like a Roth conversion. Well, and because to your point, there are different taxable accounts that you have. You have your taxable accounts that may be taxed at capital gains rates.
Sure.
You have your tax deferred accounts like a 401k that are taxed at ordinary income rates. And then you have your Roth IRAs that are tax free. But when does it make sense to create these different accounts? And when does it make sense to pull money out of these accounts? So it's a puzzle that you got to put together. So you got to make sure that you have an advisor that understands the tax code in order to be efficient at that.
I would say that for many people, if they're coming to see you or if they're coming to one of your seminars, Jimmy, is that if you are thinking, well, retirement is one of those, well, once I get to that point, then it's kind of like I just sit back and just let everything happen. Unfortunately, that's not really how it goes, though, because there's a lot of different places where your money is probably going to be parked for right now, and then you're going to get the, required minimum distribution down the road. You need somebody that can really help guide you through those lanes in order to, is it right to say, time things properly, time it out?
You're 100% right, Jeff, and I'm glad you brought that up. We see this all the time. So whenever we have clients that come in for a complimentary consultation, one of the first things we do is a portfolio analysis to see kind of how their accounts are sitting right now. And what you said was spot on. You have people that they've kind of accumulated assets in whatever retirement account that they have, and they have those assets parked there as they're entering their retirement. Well, oftentimes those assets, they may have created that allocation of investments in their early 20s or 30s. It's continued to grow, which is great. But now that they're in their 60s, those assets haven't changed. The allocation has not changed. So they may be in a highly aggressive allocation as they're entering into retirement. But what they're exposed to, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but sequence of return risk is a term that most people may not be familiar with, but those are some of the topics that we teach in our seminars, is if they're about to pull income out to replace those paychecks and that market falls, then it can completely destroy their retirement plans. Oh. And so having a plan where my assets are parked here until I make a decision, that simply isn't a plan. That's a recipe for disaster.
Sure. And I think for a lot of people too, if you are coming in and you know what, I'm going to play like I'm going to play uneducated American here for just a second when it comes to my retirement planning. And I did all the things that I think I'm supposed to do. I know I've got Social Security that's going to be down there for me, hopefully down the road one day. I've got this 401k that, I've been contributing to for, let's say, the last 30 years. Okay. And then maybe there's a couple of other places that I've put some money, whether it's a Roth IRA or just a regular IRA. I know that a lot of people think that once you hit that point where, okay, I'm no longer working, it's time for me to retire and basically stop working. Now it's time for me to collect. A lot of people may not understand that the distribution of that, of how you collect that money means everything to how long it's going to last you and how much you're going to be able to use. Am I right?
Oh, you're 100% correct on that. And that boils down to an income plan, right? I say this a lot, during your working years, you're used to those paychecks. Or if you're a business owner, you're used to that income coming in. Once you've made the decision to retire and you are going to live off of those assets that you work so hard for, you need a plan, because the way those assets are distributed, whether it be which account you pull from, that is a huge impact on how much taxes you're going to pay. And the way your assets are allocated can determine how long those assets are going to last you. And obviously, our goal is to make sure those assets last the rest of your life. So we typically will create an income plan for our clients where we'll first identify things like when to draw your Social Security. For some people, it could be as early as 62. For others, it could be as late as age 70 or somewhere in the middle. So we first kind of want to analyze when is the most efficient time, and then how do we create an income stream from your remaining assets to make sure we have something that in place that is going to last you for the rest of your life and is going to be inflation adjusted. So that's ultimately our goal, is to be able to live a lifestyle where we can keep up with inflation as well.
I'm sure a lot of people probably fall in one or two categories. So let's just say that I'm 60 years old, okay? And I know that retirement is coming up for me. I might decide to retire here in the next couple of years. I might decide to wait 10 years to retire. There's that person, okay, that hasn't quite retired yet. It's just right over the horizon. And then there's the other person who they are retired. Let's say you're 75 years old and you feel like, okay, I kind of think I know what's going on here. I mean, listen, and I don't want to scare people by saying, hey, it's a lot more confusing than you think, but it does require more attention, I'm sure, than what most people probably think as it comes to that distribution of retirement and how you're going to use that money moving forward. And that's really where you come into play, right?
Yeah, that absolutely is. And it's not a scare tactic to say it's more confusing than it is, because it absolutely is. When you dig into it, how your different accounts are taxed, how your Social Security is taxed, how your income that you bring in can actually affect your Medicare premiums, which people don't really follow all the time, but your Part B premiums that you pay, if you show too much income, there's something called IRMA, which increases those Part B premiums. And that's solely based on the amount of income that you show. And once you get stuck into something like that, you could be paying higher Medicare Part B premiums for the rest of your life. So there are so many moving parts that people don't account for, that it is not an exaggeration to say it is a little bit more confusing than, it is a confusing planning strategy.
It seems unfair that you've worked your entire life, you've worked hard, you did all the smart things, you put money away like you're supposed to, but because of the fact that, and I'm just going to, sorry government, but I'm going to throw it on the government here for a minute, but when you look at all these different, places where money is going, money's coming from Social Security, but that's also part of the government's plan, right? You've got your 401k, and that was, pre-tax dollars that were going in when you were contributing, but now it's going to be coming out as taxed dollars. So that's a government part. So the government's got their hands on a little bit of each part of it. It's almost like they're making you work too hard to figure this stuff out as you're getting into the years where you should be able to just kind of sit back and relax. Jimmy, thank God you're the person that can actually help with all of these things, right? In order to set that plan in motion. And I can sit back.
It's gratifying. I know it's cliche, but when I come into work and I meet with my clients, the feeling that you get when, it's almost like people come in and they have a stack of statements, and they have their Social Security statement that tells them how much that they can get at different stages of their retirement. And they just want answers. They want to know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to take the vacations that I want? Am I going to be okay in my later years for things like long-term care? And it is a burden on them. You can see the stress on their faces because they just don't know, especially when we live in this 24-hour news cycle where everything that you see is doom and gloom. And it doesn't matter, again, what side of the political spectrum you're on, it's all the sky is falling. And so people don't want to enter into retirement listening to all these stressful news topics and trying to figure out, what do I do with this stack of papers? And so really the sense of relief that people get when they show us their documents, we're able to give them a portfolio analysis that tells them exactly how they're allocated. How much risk are you taking right now? Are you getting the performance that you should be from these allocations? Are you paying too much in fees? Because fees oftentimes can erode any type of returns in your investments.
Well, if you want to know more about what Jimmy Lynn's doing for you and the right path to retirement, first of all, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. The Right Path to Retirement podcast. Make sure you like it, you subscribe to it. You're going to get all of the future episodes. And go to the website, rightpathtoretirement.com. Again, that's rightpathtoretirement.com. Jimmy Lynn has all kinds of different things for you to go on. You can actually get analysis. There's a free analysis that he can do for you. I know, Jimmy, you also love doing the seminars where you can, help educate people on their retirement and where to go from here.
Absolutely. So I definitely encourage people to go to our website. We have a ton of information there, a ton of resources. They can also call our office if they're interested in just a complimentary consultation. There's no obligation, but some of the things we go over, like you said, is a portfolio analysis to make sure you're allocated okay, helping to create an income plan. And oftentimes the most popular request when they come into the office is, do Roth conversions make sense? How do I turn those 401ks into tax-free money? And that's what we love to plan for.
Love it. Thank you so much for listening to the Right Path to Retirement podcast. I'm Jeff Miles for Jimmy Lynn. We will talk to you next time.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Right Path Wealth Management. Right Path Wealth Management is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Right Path Wealth Management are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Right Path Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained by sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Right Path Wealth Management.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.